The January 6th committee has made a habit of leaving us with something interesting to think about at the very end of each of its hearings. That trend continued on Tuesday when Vice Chair Liz Cheney read aloud communications that revealed attempts by people in Donald Trump's orbit to influence witness testimony.
Quote, what they said to me is, as long as I continue to be a team player, they know I'm on the right team. I'm doing the right thing. I'm protecting who I need to protect. You know I'll continue to stay in good graces in Trump world. And they have reminded me a couple of times that Trump does read transcripts. And just keep that in mind as I proceed through my interviews with the committee. A person let me know you have your deposition tomorrow. He wants me to let you know he's thinking about you. He knows you're loyal and you're going to do the right thing.
There is now new reporting that provides details to these communications. 3 sources familiar with the committee's work tell CNN one of the people contacted was Cassidy Hutchinson, the former aide to Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who testified on Tuesday. In a statement to NBC News, a spokesman for Meadows denied any involvement, saying, quote, no one from Meadows' camp, himself or otherwise, has ever attempted to intimidate or shape Ms. Hutchinson's testimony to the committee. Still, the committee has bluntly said that these communications are possibly witness tampering, which is a criminal offense all by itself, added to the mountain of evidence that is building up against Donald Trump and his allies. Joining me now is Asha Rangappa. She's a former FBI special agent and a senior lecturer at Yale's Jackson Institute for Global Affairs. Asha, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show. Straight out of the gate, do you think that these communications qualify as witness tampering or witness intimidation, of course, assuming arguendo that they are true?
Yes, Katie, thank you for having me on. I mean, look at the language of these messages or what was being told to Cassidy. You know, she needs to protect who she needs to protect. And what that says is the truth is incompatible with being loyal to Trump world and to Donald Trump. So that does seem to me to be an attempt to influence her testimony. And of course, the other message, which is sort of, you know, nice life you got there. It would be a shame if something happened to it. Sounds very like a mob boss. You know, as you mentioned, Katie, I think the key here is witness tampering is a standalone crime. This is independent of anything else they find with regard to January 6th. And I always like to use the example of Martha Stewart, who people think was convicted for securities fraud. No, she was charged and convicted for obstruction. And so I think given this MO, we will probably see more of this going forward. And I have a feeling it's going to jam up a lot of people who are a part of this investigation.
And along the vein, Asha, of this idea of trying to influence the outcome of something, according to the New York Times, Donald Trump's political organization and his allies have been paying for or have paid for or promised to finance the legal fees of more than a dozen witnesses that have been called in by the 1-6 committee. It seems at the very least ethically questionable, but could this be further evidence, in your opinion, that Donald Trump is trying to influence the outcome of how these witnesses testify?
Yeah, it's a great question, Katie. You know, as you just noted, on its face, this is more of an ethical issue than a legal one. The question really centers around the independence of the attorney. As you know, as an attorney, your obligation is to the best interest of your client. It can't be to the best interest of who's paying you, or in this case, to Donald Trump or the Republican Party. So the question is there influence in terms of the payments being made, that there's also an understanding that it's going to impact the witness testimony? And I think if you start looking at the totality of the circumstances in terms of these other messages that we just talked about, you know, I think that there might be, you know, there's a little bit of smoke there, especially since Hutchinson's testimony seemed to change and become much more fulsome once she switched lawyers.
Yeah, and that more fulsome testimony that you just mentioned, after all of that came out during Tuesday's hearing, it really does feel like the momentum has even picked up further. Things have changed. And as we learn more, we can't help but wonder, where's the Department of Justice? I mean, look, Asha, I've got a lot of respect for Merrick Garland and the institution of the DOJ, but I, along with others, we're all wondering, what is it doing, if anything, in its parallel investigation? You've said before that the two investigations have different goals. Can you explain in detail what you mean by that?
Yes, and I think this is really important for people to understand. Look, the January 6th committee is, they are doing their investigation for the people. They are there to create public accountability, lay out as many facts with as much transparency as possible. Department of Justice is very narrowly focused on whether federal crimes were committed and in gathering evidence that can support charges and proof beyond a reasonable doubt on those crimes. And these seem to be sort of going towards the same goal, but they do so in different ways. And Merrick Garland has said that he's approaching this like an organized crime investigation. He's starting from the bottom and working the way up. And look, I mean, he's done an admirable job on that. They have prosecuted over 800 foot soldiers and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Maybe what he wants is for the trail to lead up to Trump and his inner circle to be, clearly a part of that investigation, not that he just went after Donald Trump from the get-go. But I do think there's a disconnect because the committee is clearly focused on Trump, and we seem to assume that the evidence they have must be the evidence that DOJ has. And things that are coming out suggest that that is not the case. It sounds like DOJ has not even gotten the transcripts of most of the depositions of the witnesses that the January 6th committee has interviewed.
Yeah, and there are details that are like kind of drop coming out, right, or leaked about the DOJ's investigation. This week, for example, the FBI confiscated Trump lawyer John Eastman's phone. Last week, federal agents performed a pre-dawn. They executed a search warrant on former acting Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark's home. We also know that the DOJ is currently trying to negotiate access to those interview transcripts that you just mentioned. I mean, what's your sense? I mean, you're a former agent. You're also a lawyer. What's your sense of where their investigation is presently heading? I mean, the lawyers like Eastman and Clark, I mean, they were in the thick of it, literally standing shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump. Doesn't that suggest a little bit, Asha, that they're getting really close to Donald Trump now?
Yes, Katie. So, Jeffrey Clark was a DOJ employee. So the Office of Inspector General was able to initiate an investigation directly onto him as part of their jurisdiction over him being an employee. And that has given another conduit towards Trump's inner circle. So the Eastman search was related to Jeffrey Clark. So look, it's clear that they are not averse to going after the people that have been around Trump. I think really it's a question of how much time will it take to get there? How much evidence will they gather in that process? And once they gather it, will they be willing and able to actually charge all of these people with crimes? As you know, all these crimes have many elements, including intent elements, that can be tricky to prove. So I guess the caution is just to not adopt all of the things that we're hearing from this other forum, the Congressional Committee, and assume that prosecutors can just walk that right into court and, charge somebody with a crime.
Yeah, look, I mean, prosecutors have that analysis, right, that they have to do. You have to have the PC, and sometimes you have to do that analysis of whether or not you're going to be able to obtain a conviction. Maybe it's not enough that you got the PC and it meets the elements of the crime. You got to figure out if you're going to get there. And like you said, is there a stomach politically for it? Before I let you go, I got to ask you this. You posted this sketch of the investigation on Twitter. Asha, it gave me such serious Carrie Mathison Homeland vibes. I mean, I was checking it out. I'm like scrutinizing it. You got to talk about your sketch, because what parts of the investigation would you like to hear more about from the committee? I'm trying to glean that from your Homeland kind of crazy board there.
Yes. Well, I think we definitely need to hear more about the DOD portion of this diagram. And by the way, I made this because it is a sprawling conspiracy. It's really hard to keep up with all the moving parts. And frankly, it was sort of art therapy because, this whole event has been traumatizing for everybody. So, this helped me kind of clarify where we are. So the DOD part, I don't think we have gotten to. And all of these people, that members of Congress who we're also a part of this bigger scheme, this, legal blueprint for a coup. I think we haven't seen a lot of movement on that. And that's where I'd like to see more information and evidence about their involvement as well.
I don't know if those members of Congress, Asha, were the little stick figures. I distinctively saw the Mike Pence noose in the far right corner and that swath of Cheeto orange yellow in the middle is you know, it's a little PTSD for me right now. But it is fantastic. Asha Rangappa, we appreciate you spending the time with us. We'll have you back. Do another diagram, please, because we need it. We need you to help us break it all down. Thank you.
Thank you.